Okay, today we're going to talk about motivation and how to use motivation properly. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever been to a motivational seminar. I have. They're lots of fun and lots of energy and all sorts of great things. I remember seeing Rudy. I don't know if you guys remember who Rudy is, but he had a movie out many years ago now. But he was just a football freak, and he went to a school, I don't even know what school, Notre Dame or something, I don't know, whatever. And his whole goal was to be a football player, but he was a short little guy, and he had dyslexia, and there's all these different things that are stacked against him. And when he talked, it was just a awesome talk about how just to stay motivated and just keep working hard and keep your priorities straight and all those great things that you get from motivational speakers. And sure, when I left, I was excited. Just like everybody else left, they were excited too. But the thing about this type of motivation is it only lasts 2 or 3 days, maybe a week, on the outside a week. Right? Because keeping that much energy up all the time, just can't do it. So there's basically 2 types of motivation. There's that type of motivation, the I'm going to conquer the world motivation, and nothing can stop me until 2 or 3 days later. And then there's the tiny motivation. So I call them the massive action motivation and the tiny action motivation. So the massive action motivation is, you're inspired by, an event. Like you went to a seminar or a motivational talk or something like that, or it's a time like New Year's resolutions. Everybody talks about New Year's resolutions and how maybe they will last a week, maybe 2 weeks for most people, right? So motivation, that type of motivation, doesn't last very long. It can also be motivated by bad news. You go to the doctor and the doctor says, man, you got to quit smoking and you got to get some exercise. And, sure, that's motivating, but how long does it last, right? It doesn't last that long unless it's really something you stick with. And it's hard to do so because you're not used to it. And then there's the motivation of changing an environment, right? You go from one town to another and you're motivated to do better than you did wherever you came from. And that's a good type of motivation too. It's massive. It helps you to make some big decisions. But then there's tiny motivation. What is tiny motivation? Well, tiny motivation provides the energy for the day-to-day things you have to do. Getting up and brushing your teeth. Still, that requires motivation. Everything you do, developing little tiny new habits, these type of things all require motivation. You can't really feel tiny motivation, right? Once you've brushed your teeth, you're not all excited about it. You just brush your teeth. But without motivation, you're not going to do it. And it just requires a limited amount of energy, just a short, small, little tiny bit of energy. When we start talking about the daily habits as usual, we start talking about push-ups. How much energy does it take to do one push-up? Very little energy to do one push-up. So you don't need a lot of motivation to do one push-up. Do 100 push-ups, that takes a little bit more energy and a little bit more motivation to do it. So you need people cheering you on or whatever it is to get you to do 100 push-ups. Well, most people. Right, so when we start talking about motivation, everybody thinks about the massive action motivation. That's the thing, right? That's really going to get your juice going. That's the important stuff. Without massive action motivation, that's what really helps you to move yourself from point A to point B. Well, Problem is without the tiny motivation, you're not going to be able to move yourself from one place to another. You can't change yourself in 2 days, and that's about how long massive action motivation lasts. Maybe a week. You're still not going to change yourself in a week, right? So you have to have the tiny motivation to keep yourself going. And now, so you need both, but you got to use them properly. So before we go any further, we have to actually talk about what motivation is. Everybody thinks it's that feeling in you want to get going, you want to conquer the world, that type of motivation. Well, motivation is actually made up of 2 components, I believe. Desire for something and the belief that you can have that something. The desire is necessary because if you don't desire it, you're not going to work for it. It's just simple as that, right? If you desire a bowl of ice cream, you're going to go to the store and get the ice cream because you desire, you want it, right? But if you don't really like ice cream, like I don't really like ice cream, it gives me a headache, makes me feel in the back of my throat. Yuck! Keep the ice cream. So I'm not going to be motivated to go to the store to get ice cream because I just don't desire it. I don't like it. Then there's the belief. Okay, so you have to believe that you're going to be able to accomplish what you want to accomplish. If you don't believe it, you're not even going to try. We have this problem all the time with people. They don't want to try because they just don't believe they can actually do it. And as soon as you can believe that you can do it, that's what a motivational seminar is all about, right? They talk about, look, I was a poor slob that did nothing ever, never accomplished anything before, and look at the great things I did just by staying motivated. Those are all great stories, and the story is designed to help you believe you can do something. So motivation is made up of desire, the wanting the thing, and the belief that you can actually get it. Without those 2 things, you don't have any motivation. So when we talk about the 2 different types of motivation, the massive action motivation and the tiny bits of motivation, we have just an amount of energy difference, right? The massive energy, massive action energy you can have for a short period of time. You can't maintain it long term. So what do you use it for? After you come home from that seminar or you make those New Year's resolutions and you're all motivated, what do you use it for? This is when you develop your vision. When you say, I'm going to be fit this year, or your New Year's resolution, I'm going to be able to, lift this much weight or run this far, or I'm going to double my income, or whatever it is that you say for your New Year's resolution. That is the vision of what you want. So that's motivation. Is going to get you your vision. Second thing you're going to use it for is to make goals to get you to the vision. Because without goals, the vision is just a dream. It's just going to disappear, and next year you're going to make the same resolution. So stop that. Use the motivation you have properly and use it to develop a plan and set those goals to get what you want this year, or whatever the goal is, or the vision is. And thirdly, you have to stop and develop a system. We've talked about systems before. People say, forget about goals, you just work a system. Well, that's great, but if you don't have a goal, you won't develop the system. So now you have the goal, now you can develop the system. Okay, what is it that I want? What do I have to do on a daily basis so that I can get what I want in this year, or this month, or this week, or whatever it is? And then you use your tiny motivation to actually do the things you need to do on your plan. You perform the daily actions that you have written down when you had all the energy for the massive action. You write those things down, and now you are going to do them. Right, that little tiny action. Okay, so if I'm going to be fit this year, then I'm going to do 10 push-ups in the morning. That's a little bit of motivation, but you don't need a lot of motivation to do 10 push-ups. Well, some type of 10 push-ups. Some people, it might be a little difficult to do 10 push-ups, but if you set yourself a goal, then eventually, in a fairly short period of time actually, you'll be able to do 10 push-ups. So that's the point. Use that tiny motivation to do the daily things that you need to do. You also use it to record your progress. Because if you don't record your progress, then the motivation disappears. You have to be able to see that you're actually getting better. So use that motivation to write it down. And then a week later, you can look back and say, hey, I did it for a whole week. That's motivating when you say, wow, a whole week. Now, I bet you if I keep on working, then I can do 2 weeks and then 3 weeks. And then we get to the point where you don't want to stop doing it because you don't want to break your chain, right? That's the Gerald Seinfeld effect, I guess. What's the guy's name? He wrote a joke a day, and he just kept on writing a joke a day. He's a comedian. He needed a joke a day. Didn't have to be a good joke, just had to be a joke. So Jerry Seinfeld. All right, so write it down, record your progress, and then you need that motivation, because that motivation will rewire your brain to actually develop the habits you need to have the thing you want in the end. We've talked about this before. If you have a vision, usually the vision is a vision of somebody who is something. Right? We talked about identity just recently, where you can't just assume an identity and suddenly you're motivated to do all those things you don't want to do. That's not how it works. You develop your identity by the habits you develop. And so when you say a vision, I'm going to be wealthy this year, or I'm going to develop be fitter, or whatever it is, I'm going to become a runner, I'm going to become an athlete. That's a vision of who you are. And your brain will rewire you into developing those habits so that you then become who you want to be. And that's the only way you can do it, is using that tiny motivation and keeping on the languages. Every time you do something, that's a vote for your future vision self that you want to be. All right. So that's the 2 ways that you can use motivation. One is to make the big, massive plans. Make the changes. Don't think that you're going to suddenly become something that you're not. Just make the plan to become that something, that someone that you want to be. And then use the tiny motivation to actually get there step by step.